welcome, Sujata. How are you this beautiful Sunday?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sandra. It's so great to be with you here today.
Awesome. All right. We are live. We are live for our series 1 for Activate Success, tips, tools, and insights to be a leader in your niche. We are now an international best-selling authors. Woohoo! This is the book and this is the workbook. So how exciting. And we wanted to bring you this series, and we're going to be running the series, well, for the next couple weeks, because we have lots of chapters, lots of great work that has gone into this book, and we are still in launch phase. So I have put into the wonderful chat how to get book and how to leave a review, which is really, really important. So why don't we get started first, Sujata? Let's introduce ourselves to our audience, to our viewers. We're on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube right now. So can you just share a little bit about who is Dr. Sujata Ives?
Okay, thank you, Sandra. So I'm coming from outside Washington, D.C., Maryland area, where I have a private practice. I'm president of the Maryland Career Development Association. I am program chair for Asia Pacific Career Development Association. I'm chair of the International Committee for the American Counseling Association. And what a joy to be together today to talk about our book and workbook.
Oh, thank you. Wow. I mean, literally, like that is so impressive. Like all the things you have done and the accomplishments to get to where you are today is really exceptional. So a little bit about me. I'm Sandra Horton, and I am actually coming from the Lower Mainland in British Columbia in Canada. So we have both the US and Canada represented here, but our heritage comes from even beyond these borders. The wonderful thing about myself is that I am known as a true, I'm an activator. That's what I do. I'm a activated success coach, and I love to help people truly transform. And I've been doing this for 25 plus years, and I have lots of different hats and handles and things that I do. But most importantly is that over those 25 years, I've really been focusing on change management and project leadership. I'm in the healthcare sector, but I do a lot of work outside of it as well in my consulting business, which I started in 2014. So I'm super excited, and welcome to those who are listening to us live today or on the replays that we are going to have after we conclude today. What else about me? Well, I'm just an engaged mama and a grandma, and I think we don't bring this up enough because who we are as women leaders, it comes from our family. It comes from our legacy. It comes from really answering the 4 essential questions of who am I? Where am I going? How do I get there? And how do I stay there? So today's segment is really going to be focused on the first parts within the book. And what we want to do for those who are listening now is, just open yourselves up, take a breath in, and just say, wow, what is some new information that I can bring in about not only these 2 leaders, but how could I apply this in my life? So Sujata, why don't we this is very informal. This is just us having a conversation about kind of our journeys of why those 4 essential questions are so important. So why don't we start there? As leaders, why do we have to answer these questions?
So what we decided, folks, was that it all starts with me, myself, and I. Mm-hmm. And those are the 3 people you have inside of you, right? The me, the heart, the head brain, the myself, the heart brain, and the gut brain, right? So you have me, myself, and I. And all of these things are working together. So we have to start here first. That's what we decided, Sandra and I. Bring you our stories, literally our stories that contributed to who we are today. And so those 4 essential questions that we have in the book start off with our very first pillar. We have 3 pillars in this book, but the very first pillar is self-discovery. And so in that self-discovery realm, we have ourselves have answered the 4 essential questions of who am I? Where am I going? How do I get there? And how do I stay there?
Mm-hmm. And you know, Sujata, those are really powerful things because we want to share authentically. We're going to share a lot about ourselves because that's what will connect to you. Because we can hear, we can see all these different books out there, but it's the essence of who we are and the connections that we've made and the service that we want to bring to the world. And this is a key piece. So let's start to dive in. Let's kind of take that leap. Here we go into sharing with the world, as we always do, our stories. And again, I want to preface that this piece of the work is just the beginning, because within the rest of the book, we really dive into all the other applications in practice, meaning all the different wonderful leadership styles and ways that you can really take your leadership to the next level to be a leader in your niche. But we have to start with our first place, because I can speak a little bit if you want, Sujata, then we'll jump into yours. I was born early. I was born really small. My parents loved me dearly, but I was born to older parents. And at that time, I'm 61 now, babies who were 4 pounds sometimes didn't survive. And that's kind of a hard reality in a little ways, but it made me strong even from that first infancy, because I had to fight for life. And the reason I'm saying fight for life, it's a key here. Because when we get into unlocking our own leadership stories, fight, flight, response is going to play a very paramount thing in my life. So when I started to look at who am I, it took me a while, right, Sujata? Like when I was sharing my story, I was born to older parents. My mom and dad were completely different, opposite, wonderful, loving parents, but they were completely opposite parents. My mom was energetic. My dad was an academic, as a veterinarian, loved the brain. My mom was all action. Some interesting pieces for me as I was evolving and learning who am I. As I went through and I shared in the story here, and you'll see this in our chapters, and I'm just going to go here. It's on page 35. Parents do play a very powerful role in how your children develop, how their mindset develops. And a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset will play prominently in my life. And so as I was growing, I was very active, but I was also a very sad child. I was a sad child because I wasn't connected to a lot of people. And that was a hard place, I share in the book as well, is that it was almost nurture and nature was kind of competing in how I was being raised, because I was nurtured by my parents, but the circumstances outside of me were not the greatest. Unfortunately, as I was developing as a child, which made me a stronger leader now, I had to kind of look at how do I overcome some pretty hard things in who am I? And many things that happened to Sujata for myself, one of the lessons that really stands out for me is that I have to learn how to observe myself. If I had done that earlier, because I was so busy just being, that I didn't realize until I had unlocked my leadership story, my true story inside of me as a child of assault when I was a younger child. The victimization, the codependency, the bullying persisted throughout all of my life. And yes, this is all vulnerable things to share globally, but it's important because so many people struggle. So many, whether you're women, men, it doesn't matter how you identify. If you're not aware of self and what's happening for you, things have already happened to you. And so you become, in some ways, a victim of those circumstances. And that's how victimization, codependency, and all of these things show up, which you may not even be aware of. And that's repression. That's your coping mechanism. And we'll go through Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and I'll land my place here in just a moment. Because of these things happened outside of my consciousness, I held within my body, though, the trauma. I held within me all of these impacts that I wasn't aware of. I was aware of the bullying, which made me stronger to stand up for myself, but I didn't build the connections. I didn't know the connection to myself in my earlier story until I awoke like 30 plus years later. So you can still be a high performing, high functioning individual, but not know your story. So this is why it's so powerful to redefine self, your identity of self, your self-esteem, and all those pieces come from who am I? So I wanted, that's a lot to unpack, but that's a lot there. That's part of my story that I wanted to share. And unlocking these pieces really has transformed my life. So I'm going to just take a moment and say, Sujata, hearing that, how does that resonate for you in terms of, learning who am I? Was your story perhaps maybe more clear? Perhaps maybe because mine was repressed and hidden until I awoke and became self-aware from within to without. Tell us a little bit about your story and how did that come up for you?
Sure. Thank you so much, Sandra, because as people read your story, they're going to realize through awareness that trauma, childhood trauma, does show up, whether you have used repression or other coping mechanisms. And as a counselor and a psychologist, I can truly say that you have to function. So you're functioning at the conscious level, but all this stuff is going on in your subconscious, and it does show up either explicitly or implicitly. But this self-discovery piece of who am I? That's the first essential question that we talk about as authors. And it's the very first question that we want you to talk about in the workbook. If you are to go from that self-discovery pillar to the next pillar, which is change readiness, then to the third pillar, which is sustainable impact, you absolutely must write down what you feel and what you are identifying with from your past story. So my story is slightly different than Sandra's. I identify with my bicultural background. My parents and I came here when I was 8.5, almost 9 years old. And I had to learn the language. I had to assimilate. I didn't like the food at first and loved the music, though. The 70s and the 80s really had great music. But one thing out of my childhood experience, and of course, we've written our stories down, but I want to share with you, as an immigrant child, I had to help my mother, my parents, to acclimate. My father did a great job because he was going to work and so forth. But my mom, she really needed help. And at some point, I felt like I was teaching her, and I felt like in this process of transculturalism, interculturalism, multiculturalism, I became the parent and she became the child. So she really was learning how to adapt to a new culture, and she had a hard time. She did.
Well, thank you, Sujata, and thank you for vulnerability. And I invite all those, when you pick up your book now, you can go to Amazon and just input Activate Success. It's such an amazing, powerful book. You will be touched by Sujata's story, because I think it does resonate for many individuals around the world when you move from one country to another, and some of those challenges and even barriers that you have to face. So in unlocking ourselves, really knowing who am I, like truly on the essence of who we are, we then kind of move in through that self-discovery pieces. We're still self-discovering, but we have to know, where are we going? So who am I? Where am I going? So I'm going to turn it to you, Sujata, to go first on this one. And then I'll go to the other one. We'll kind of go back and forth.
Yeah, thank you, Sandra. So, where am I going here? So, through this Who Am I story and this background as a bicultural person, where I was going initially through my late childhood and adolescence was based on my parents' values. And the reason why they came to the United States was for freedoms, and the freedom of education and knowledge and religion. And so that was just drummed into me, and so the value no wonder, like, I had to get my PhD because the value was on education, right? So that's drummed into you. That becomes part of your DNA. And so I'm feeling that I can get there through educating myself, through being a lifelong learner, and through being a productive member of society, which is why I mentioned earlier, I'm president of this association and a chair of another association, because my father always told me to give back to this country for what this country has done for us as immigrants. And that was so important to them. And of course, it's important to me as well.
That's so powerful, and giving back, being of service, and thanks to all those who are listening, and to all those who will listen to on the replay. I want to echo the importance of, we're talking about the 4 essential questions. So just to kind of going back to the early parts of why we're here today is really kind of sharing not only our story of going through the 4 essential questions: who am I, where am I going, how do I get there, and how do I stay there, which is the quintessential, our kind of our 4 essential questions, and that help you to move your life forward. And it's very powerful. I'd like to add around for myself is self-confidence. Because if we don't know ourselves, and we've come through trauma, and we've gone through all this journey, until we awaken to realize, who am I, perhaps the self-confidence can be, and this is my words, this is just from my perspective, so my lens, my eyes looking out, it is based on all my backstory and my family and limiting beliefs, etc., that I had to gain self-confidence. I could achieve externally, but internally, what was the story I was telling? Was my self-talk positive, or was it negative? So really being very focused on building self-confidence, knowing self-worth, that my voice was important to be heard. I didn't need to push to be heard. And I think that's a key piece for many individuals who haven't gone through trauma, who haven't really worked through their trauma, haven't dug into it, haven't unlocked it, haven't kind of let it go and reframed it, had a code shift to really kind of look at it in different ways, and learning to check in with your internal guidance system. What I mean by that is, we're always here in our brain thinking and not connected to our heart or knowing where our higher purpose is. Guess what? We're stuck here. Our body literally is just our body, but we need to, and we do know that feelings tell us so much about what's going on. Why do people get sick? Because they don't deal with their trauma. They hold it within their body on a cellular level. We need to tap into those pieces of ourselves and listen to our bodies. That's why when I came out from doing my master's in leadership at Royal Roads, I got certified in emotional intelligence, because to learn how to understand your emotions is critical, because we have to learn how to understand where they come from, but then how to express them in a way that's balanced, that allows us to grow and to learn. As we're growing, as we're opening ourselves up to become our best versions of ourselves as leaders, there's a risk. I'm going to repeat that. There's a risk. Why? Because we're open. We're open to new information. We're open to people. one of the greatest learnings that I can say for myself, and I know Sujata's had some experiences in her life, is around being open but not gullible, and knowing how do I evaluate what others are offering me to then grow. Let's unpack that for a little bit, because it comes back to our values. If we know ourselves, who am I, where I'm going, my values that I want to live my life by, I can then say, well, wait a second. Are you in alignment? Do you have integrity? Why are you wanting to help me? And I've learned and been burned a number of times through this process, but I've learned through the process to understand how others can manipulate, particularly when you're really opening yourself up. So just be mindful not to be gullible, but be in control. Be willing to learn, be vulnerable, but not gullible. And then the other important thing is being very clear with your values. How do you want to do, let's redefine our values. What are they? Not the values that perhaps my parents wanted me to have. What do I need? What are my needs? So I'm going to just stop on that point. Sujata, did you want to add to that one? And then I just have one more point on this after as well.
Sure, beautifully articulated. And it goes back to your mention of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Mm-hmm. No matter who we are, right? Indians or Americans or Canadians, or just doesn't matter. We all are human beings and we have certain needs. And so this book is based on foundational theories that apply to all human beings. And Maslow's hierarchy is one of those. We have to have our biological needs met and our psychological needs met. And so when we write the story, if you look at it through this Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you can ask yourself, did I get the safety? Was I safe psychologically? Did I have the sense of belongingness? How's my self-esteem? And, where am I going? Am I going to self-actualize? So those theories become critical in this book, and there are many, many, many theories that are sprinkled throughout this book that will help you to self-lead and lead others.
That's so well put. And I, before we go on to the next of the third of the fourth essential questions, one of the things I just wanted to bring to everyone's awareness is the importance is what I call the core change model, which is really that important thing that I brought to the world just for myself. And I think it's a great opportunity for others as well, is the connection. We must connect to ourselves, and then also to observe ourselves. Because if we're always in that fast pace and going, and that was me, we miss things. We're not there. So we need to connect to ourselves. We need to observe ourselves, take those breaths, and then have an R, which is reflection. What is showing up for you in this moment? Like, what are you thinking? What are you feeling? What are you experiencing? We need, again, to go back into that connection of the mind, the body, the full integration, the gut. All of this needs to be in alignment to really feel that psychological safety so we can make the best informed decisions. And the last one is engagement, then reaching out to engage with others in a way that's positive and productive. So these are some of the things that I found very helpful when I was going through answering these kind of questions. So let's keep this going, Sujata. I think we're doing a great job and sharing openly and vulnerably. So we're moving into the third kind of area now, which is, how do I get there? What's your thoughts? What's your story on this?
How is going to be different for everybody. And Sandra and I, in this question, shared how we got there. And what does it mean to get there, got there? Like what is there, right? So the there that we're talking about is your goal, right? These are your goals, your aspirations, your dreams. So how do you get there to your goal, to your dream, to your aspiration? And so Sandra and I have different goals. She's in healthcare, and I'm in career development, employment counseling sector. So our goals are slightly different, but guess what? Our values are the same. When this Indian got together with a Canadian, it just was magic. It became magic for us because my experiences and also my thinking in how I can get there meshed with her, how she could get there, because we both had similar experiences as females through systems.
Yeah.
And that was a real cathartic experience for us as we compared notes as females, and also different countries that play such an important role in our influence. This book will take you through how to get to your goals and your dreams and your aspirations through something that we call activators.
Mm-hmm.
Those activators are things that have worked for us, and our observation showed that those activators worked for our clients. So we give you a real head start here. For each chapter, we give you these activators. If you don't know where to start here at these activators. And so when you see words like activator, words like empathy, legacy, impact, you can start somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So let Monday morning's meeting be about one or two of those activators. That's how you start. You start at the individual level and then branch out to your team. Then you knowledge share with your team. You don't hoard this information. You knowledge share this information. You don't withhold. Yeah. We're bringing empathy into the equation. And as a matter of fact, we bring something highly critical in this book. We call it an empathy ethic. Mm-hmm. Because post-pandemic, we believe that it is your duty to take your empathy and to put it in practice for yourself, for your team, and for your system. See, post-pandemic, we can't do things the same like we did previously. We just can't. Many people want to, but here we are, two females coming together and writing about how you can get there differently through different models.
That was powerful. Woo! Mic drop. And whether you're listening to us live on beautiful LinkedIn or Facebook or YouTube, we just want to thank you. Or if you're listening to this in replay, thank you for making the choice today to take your life to the next level. I really do fully believe that this book will transform lives, because we're going to the essential 4 questions. Answer these, your life will transform. So we're just kind of giving you little excerpts about a little bit about us and how we're applying them. But those activators are powerful. They're the momentum boosters that will get you from where you were to where you want to get to. Because I know when we talk about this in organizations where we serve and those we serve, that many people that have all these goals, they started them out in January and dang, it's May. Oh, what happened to me? Why am I here? It's because there's so many distractions, so many things that come up to us that can take us offline. But with clear, focused determination, if you know who you are, you're clear in your values, you know where your stories are at. I think also the last piece here I want to say about, the how piece is understanding the power and the importance of learning. If we have a fixed mindset, and this is really, again, I said that a little earlier, embedded from our teachers, it's embedded from our parents. If you grow up being told, oh, you're only going to be as good as this, or this is all you can do, what is your potential to actually fully achieve your goals? perhaps going to be a little bit more limited. However, if you are able and you can now switch to a growth mindset, everything opens up. You literally open yourself up to go, oh, that was a learning. Learnings are key. For me, as someone who has a learning disability, I had to find ways to work through it, and nothing stopped me. So there's no excuses for anyone out there. If you have a disability, if you have an impairment, if you have something that isn't easy in your life, because most of us have something, don't let it stop you. Make it your power source. Make it that intestinal, hey, I've got this. This is a gift that I can then turn and learn and then share with others. You find you become resourceful because we're so much more resourceful than we ever give ourselves credit for. And when we embrace ourselves and give ourselves a big hug, it's amazing, because this is what we do to really accomplish our hows, our goals, that drive, the resilience, even in the face of massive adversity. And why do some people accomplish all these goals? It's because they have the right mindset and they are able to make themselves with super amazing, like-minded souls around them. The most important thing is we've already done. Who am I? Where am I going? How do I get there? How do I stay there? And inherent in this is always growth. So Sujata, why don't you take us away first on that?
Sure. So once you've reached your goals, your dreams, your aspirations, and mind you, they can be physical things like a job promotion, getting married, or whatever your goal or aspiration is. But it could also be something that's internal, such as, I want to love myself more. Acceptance. It could be acceptance. It could be empathy. So it could be an internal construct. It could be an attribution of success, right? This book title is Activate Success. What is the imposter phenomenon? The imposter phenomenon is an inability to attribute internal success. I know this because my dissertation is on the imposter phenomenon, not syndrome, imposter phenomenon, self-efficacy and anxiety. Your goals can be external, but they can also be internal goals. Once you feel comfortable that you have reached those goals, that you feel satisfied. Now, how do you stay there? This is a point that I have pondered for decades. How do you stay there if you feel like you have worked hard to make a certain value in your life a priority? Well, what you do is you do not give up your free will to anybody. You have free will. That's what the humanistic movement is about. That's that third wave in psychology. Whatever your value is, maybe it's peace building, maybe it's empathy, maybe it's dependability, responsibility, cleanliness, whatever your value is. Do not give up your free will to any person, place, or thing. Stay steadfast to your values. It's the only way that you will be able to make a difference in this world. It's the only way that you'll be able to change, adapt, and grow.
I love that. And I could just feel your passion and your power. I'm like, woohoo. And this is such a wonderful Sunday opportunity just to share like the essence. This is the essence of our stories and the power behind the transformation. Like, and I'm mindful of that word, but truly, how do we stay there? For me, it's the openness and it's the ability to consistently look at myself, to look at how I'm showing up as a leader. So whether you're an informal or formal leader, in any and all moments, we must be more conscious. Get present. Present meaning I'm not out in the future. I'm not worried about the past. I'm in this moment right now, my current state. As a certified change agent, what is my current state? How am I showing up? What am I seeing? What am I experiencing? What am I feeling in this moment? So if we have an open growth mindset, as Carol Dweck lovely and articulated in her book, that the growth mindset is the key thing, shifting the opportunity for growth, to look at things differently, to look at setbacks as learning opportunities, and then consistently challenging ourselves. We haven't really talked about this too. One of the greatest gifts we can give ourselves, check that lovely back brain, that little ego that just loves to show up, that loves to say, hey, what about me? That to me in this new age is one of the key things. We need to check the ego. We need to understand it. Yes, thank you so much. It keeps us, kind of going and doing what we're used to rote doing, but we need to say thank you, but no thank you. I'm going to, with purpose and intention, and this is this key piece of staying here, with intention, looking at the opportunities versus the lack. And when we're in lack, what do? We shut down. We bring in more lack. And this is the thing about Activate Success, is the opportunity to change and to grow and to do it through the workbook. And Sujata, go. I know I'm sensing you want to.
Yes. You can't. Look, it's, I'm telling you guys, change is not easy. Nope. It's just not. And that's why you have to dig deep. You got to take a deep dive in self-discovery, but you got to get yourself ready for change. That's why we call it change readiness. And the law of physics says change is constant. You have to prepare yourself, your mindset, just like Sandra said. And you can change those habits and everything. And incidentally, she said ego. We have a whole chapter on ego. So
we do.
We're going to do this series. We're going to take you step by step through this book. So thank you so much for joining us for this very first episode and taking you through Chapter 2, which is essential questions.
Yes, thank you, Sujata. And as we wrap this up, we will be in our series, in our next episode. As Sujata said, we are going to be going through the book in these different chapters to really begin. So we've gone through embarking. Chapter 2 is embarking on your journey. The four essential questions are the activators. So write them down. Take some time today, because it's always about the action that you can do. Write out, even begin now. And go to Amazon, pick up the book, get book, Activate Success, and the workbook, because this will really, it's an accompaniment that will help you work through it. It has some additional case studies and activities to kind of get you started, to help you out. Thank you again. We look forward to our next episode. I'm going to now conclude and say thank you. And we're going to just put on a little bit of some closing music. And we will see you next week. Bye for now.